Hello, folks. It's Michael with the Reason RX podcast. Back again. So, today we are going to talk about education, quality education, homeschooling, and we have two guests here, a mother and a daughter, Gail and Kira, with lots of experience in this field, on this topic, to discuss this with us. So, could you all introduce yourselves, please?
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gail Paquette, and I homeschooled back in the 90s before the internet was really taking off. So I have two daughters that I homeschooled in Austin, Texas. And in those early days, we were associated with homeschool groups, and we did a lot of library work to create a curriculum that worked for my kids. After doing that for some years, I wound up having a school in my home. I had gone to a couple of conferences, and people were asking me to homeschool their kids, and that really isn't the nature of homeschooling, but I did accept people into my private school. So anyway, that was an experience in itself. And later I went on to corporate training in Salt Lake City, where I moved to from Austin. And I now am retired from that, and I work with personal training. So I've been in training for a really long time and teaching for a long time, and I really enjoy the whole aspect of education and learning and teaching.
Cool.
So that's me.
And so, to put it temporally a little bit for folks, you were homeschooling before the iPhone was invented, right?
Yes, right. We didn't have cell phones.
Yeah,
there weren't many websites back then.
No cell phones, right? We didn't
what's
use
that?
Did we have cell phones then? Yeah, it was like
no.
Yeah, maybe when they were starting, or just like before they were popular. Yeah.
Yeah. So I homeschooled my two daughters all the way through like middle school, and then I think it was mostly middle school and a little bit on the high school end of things, because they were precocious kids and more advanced. But Kira can tell you about herself as well.
And then let's see. So really quickly, were there many resources you could look at for the homeschooling? You say you had to like look in books and just cobble it together all on your own? There wasn't some overall structure?
There was definitely an overall structure, but I created the structure myself. Mm-hmm. So there were some good reference books that I used as a guide, but it was, picking and choosing and pulling together a robust curriculum that taught the basics. And, we can certainly get into more details as the podcast continues. Cool. But there was a lot of library work and manual work without the use of, all the online resources that we have today. I didn't have all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kira?
Yeah, so I'm Kira Withrow. I'm Gail's daughter. I was homeschooled since I was 4 through about 16. And then I enrolled in college and spent the next 15 years in and out of college. And I am finally finishing up my degree next month.
Cool.
But I got a wide breadth of education in both homeschooling and in my college career. And then my intent is to become a private school history teacher or math teacher. I currently run a private tutoring business here in Moab, Utah, for students in any of the primary subjects. Most of my students are in math, but and yeah, I work at a history museum in Moab, doing archival work and research work for the curator. Yeah, that's me.
What's your degree going to be?
It's a history degree with a focus in teaching and a minor in classical civilizations.
Cool. PhD?
Yeah. No, it's a Bachelor of the Arts, actually.
Cool. Cool.
So when I transferred into the University of Utah, I came in with like 120 something credits because I've been in, like I said, just been in college for a very long time. Most of my time in college, I decided when I was little that I wanted to be Leonardo da Vinci. Cool. And he was the original polymath. So when I went into college, I didn't declare a major. I didn't have any plan. I just took what I was interested in. So I took a whole lot of what I was interested in up until a point where they told me that I wasn't allowed to take any more classes until I chose a major. So this is the first official degree I'll be getting, but I feel like I'm very close to quite a few. So maybe I'll go back and get more. I don't know.
Kind of like Steve Jobs, just took a bunch of different stuff that you're interested in.
Yeah, pretty much.
But he never got a degree. So.
Yeah, it's the secondary part. The most important part is whether or not you know what you're talking about, whether you have the education.
Right. Yeah, like people talk about news and fake news. Or what about education and fake education?
Right. Like you could get a piece of paper and not have any applicable skills. So I much prefer all of the applicable skills, and I believe very strongly in the wide net approach to education rather than being super specialized when you're starting out, because I think that for what I want to do, I want to have a more wide range of topics that I'm familiar with.
Mm-hmm. And
I don't know.
Have you read the book Range by David Epstein?
No, I haven't heard of it.
I'll try to remember to put a link in the show notes for folks since I mentioned it. Let me see. Let me put I got this email open up. Range by Epstein. Good book. He talks about some of that. It's subtitled, probably because of the publishers, just to get people's attention. Got my attention. But it's Range, subtitled, How Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a good book.
It's not really a specialized world. So clearly I think that's just to get people's attention, as it got mine. But yeah, a lot of really good, useful information in it. Something I could listen to more than once. So it'd be kind of like what's that sci-fi author that Heinlein? I think Heinlein did a good thing. Specializations for insects. Humans should be able to plan a war, change a diaper, cook a meal, write a poem, all this other stuff. Change a tire.
Yeah.
Do
totally.
math. Prove a theorem.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And since I want to go into education myself, when I finally did choose history as a major, it was mostly because history is the one subject where I felt like I could talk about all the other subjects also. Because that was the biggest struggle for me all through my college period was I felt like I could do anything, and that meant that I had to choose between everything. I had a hard time narrowing it down because I wanted to do everything.
You should have got a good degree in philosophy then, the science of everything.
I absolutely considered it.
Everything in general, nothing in particular.
I wouldn't be able to tolerate the philosophy lectures in most schools. So.
Yeah. It'd have to be a select place
I'm a
with a special
self-taught
program.
philosopher.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But cool. And I thought I was going to say something else in that regard, but I forgot. Anyway, so cool. Anything else to add on y'all's background? Anything else you thought of? We got it covered?
No. Yeah.
Nope, I'm good.
Cool. All right. I had to open your picture up so I can feel like I'm talking to a person since I'm talking to y'all via phone. I can't see you. So I open your picture up. And now you're both laughing and I can see your smiles. I can like pretend I see you laughing. That is so cool. Okay. So some background. So we want to talk a little bit about homeschooling and all that. And oh, by the way, make sure people who don't like homeschooling notice how Kira can actually talk and hold a conversation, and she's nice. She's not inhibited or anything. It's like a normal conversation, and she's got a pleasant tone, so it's okay. But before we get into some of this stuff, let's hit some background. So, like, if we're going to talk about it, homeschooling, then, like, first, so what the heck is education? What the heck is teaching? Let's, like, maybe step back and think about a little more fundamental things, the what, the why homeschooling. So how would y'all describe education? What do y'all think about it?
So I can tackle that one first, Kira, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I think of education as kind of a process in becoming educated. So education isn't a thing. It is a process of, looking at the world and how you go at things, and whether or not, I think Kira alluded to this earlier, whether or not you can actually apply what you learn in whatever setting it is, if it's online through this podcast or through a book or through a classroom. Are you just letting it hit you so that you can pass a test, or are you really thinking about what you're hearing and turning it around in your own mind to be able to use it in life? I think that's the process of education. And with that, for teaching, is your instructor or your guide or the expert, is that person inspiring you to think through what you're hearing and learning about and apply it, or are they just kind of delivering spoon-fed morsels to you so that you can pass a test? Those two things are very different, and I would say that the good teacher is someone who really wants to engage students to process for themselves how to use the information that they take in and become educated. So, Kira, what would you say about those things?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing, but I would say it a little differently. I would say that when I think about education, I think there's two types of education. There's education for the materials that you get from education, the facts, the information, the hard results from education are the material. And then you also have the method. So the method is, how do you get to the conclusion? How do you integrate this into a wider picture? How do you teach yourself things when things are not presented to you in a full package? How do you pursue knowledge for yourself? That's a methodology. So a teacher can teach either just material, or they can teach material and methodology of how to learn. Not just what to learn, but how to learn. And the best teachers, I think, teach students how to learn. So learning is the thing that they're offering, not facts, because you can always find facts. You can use a scientific method to come up with your own fact, like to go out and do your own research. But what does that mean? How do you tie it all together and make it make sense and make it meaningful to you in your life? That's a much more important goal of a teacher, I think.
So that applies to any kind of education. If people want to differentiate public school, private school, homeschool, autodidact, no matter what through history. So that's the essence of education, no matter what, right?
Yeah, academic, physical. I mean, people talk about sports. When you're trying to teach a student how to play a sport, you can teach them physically how to play, or you can teach them the goals and the strategy and the the method of the sport, of the game. Maybe that's too big an analogy, but I think any piece of education, you have this division between the solid deliverables, which are the material knowledge, and the more theoretical, how do you get to knowledge questions.
I think maybe.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, Gail. What?
Yeah, I was just gonna build on what she was saying. I absolutely agree with what you said, Kira. And just to take it a step further, I think the ability to integrate your knowledge and show how things relate to one another does take kind of a teacher who is also a leader to discover the aha moments of, oh, this kind of goes with that and that goes with that. And therefore, I think here's like a conclusion. That's kind of creative thought process that, even though you may deliver content, like you were saying, the material, how it goes together and what you derive from that content is a thinking skill that can encourage creativity in the package, right? So I don't necessarily think a teacher should deliver all of the answers as to how those things come together, but they can lead a student in discovering the connections between things to come to a conclusion.
And by integrate, what integrate means, like connect social groups? What do you mean by integrate?
Not to integrate pieces of what you're learning. So
To put together.
We're talking, to put together.
So
put together pieces.
Oh, so just like thoughts and ideas, not like when people say integrate nowadays, a lot of times they might think integrating different social groups together, underprivileged or whatever.
No.
But here, by integrate, you mean connecting ideas, totally different concept, entirely different context?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not talking about the social structure, just about what's happening.
When I talk about wanting to teach history, the reason is because I can integrate through history a lot of different subjects, because I can talk about the history of science, and I can talk about the history of math, and I can talk about the history of philosophy, and I can I can cover a whole lot of subjects and give them kind of a holistic view. I hate that term, but it applies.
I love that word. I love that word. It's the best. Holistic. I love it.
View of how life has happened, or how humanity has moved through history in all of these many areas. And it's kind of like, when I think about integrating information, it's connecting all of the dots so that you get a bigger picture, instead of just focusing on one isolated thing at a time and thinking that they live in their own separate bubbles. You can actually connect the dots and see something bigger.
So it's not like the calculus thing either of integrate, but integrate is more like forming a big picture from the pieces, being holistic, stuff like that. That's what you mean by integrating ideas, getting this unified conceptual knowledge, this like theory building in your head of the total world.
Yes, exactly.
And that's an important principle you're saying that should be in any education, public, private, autodidact, homeschool. That's an important principle.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. And I think if we want to talk about mainstream modern education, that's something that's not entirely missing, because there are good teachers in the mainstream education industry, but I don't think that as a industry that the mainstream education really focuses on integrating information, ideas, that way.
It's more like just teaching the facts so that you can pass a test. so that the school can get funding.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times in modern classrooms, and Carrie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my perception is that they mostly want to teach to the test so that they can get more funding and say, yeah, we're an achieving school, and our students pass, or they go on to other colleges and their SAT scores are this or that. So it's more outcome-based education, meaning the outcome is the test results of the mass of students that are in that group.
Or as some say, really quickly, I think I've heard some people say you get what you measure.
Right. Well, and it's hard to measure integration, like whether a person is a polymath when they leave. I think we should be trying to educate kids to think like Leonardo da Vinci and integrate everything. But I don't think that that's possible to do in the system that we have in mainstream modern education. How I would characterize mainstream modern education is just a failed system. There are far too many students per teacher. That ratio is completely unmanageable in terms of actually having a meaningful impact on your students. You just have to try your best and hope that one or two of them out of the 45 students in front of you, that one or two of them really grasp what you've just tried to teach them. The rest of them will grasp it in little pieces, and that's why there's so much repetition in the modern education system, is because so little of it really sticks each time. You keep throwing, as a teacher, you just throw stuff at the wall and hope that it sticks once in a while, but it's just not a manageable system. It's far too crowded, not enough teachers, not enough focus on the individual student.
And that goes back to the range book too. How we should be generalists. Same thing. And then I'll put some stuff in the show notes for people too. Johns Hopkins University has some people that are actually having to do that to their PhD scientists, teach them how to be more interdisciplinary. Because it's not being done. Johns Hopkins, best medical school in the country, if not the world. They're talking about their PhD, their postgrad students, not their undergrad. So if these people are there at that academic quality of school, with that kind of rating in their postgrad program, if they have to have a special program to teach them how to do science and be interdisciplinary, well, then that shows a lack in undergrad school and high schools in general.
Yeah.
So it's not like Kira being the jerk about education, but it's other people saying the same. And that's a point too to make. Like, you're not attacking the school system so much, but showing how it should be improved because you love the culture and like people and want people to see people doing their best. Or am I putting words in your mouth?
No, I don't think so. I think it's tragic. Like, I think that the current modern public education system is just kind of tragic, because I don't blame the teachers, and I don't blame the students, and I don't even really blame the general public or the administrators. They're trying their best with a system that is inherently flawed. So even if they have the best of intentions and they try their hardest, the system is inherently flawed because it doesn't take into account the importance of the individual connection between a teacher and a student. And there's no shortcut for that. You can't mass produce meaningful education. I don't think that it's possible to find a shortcut and make a fast food version that's going to be just as good, So I have a whole lot of friends who are teachers in the public school system, and I feel very empathetic and sorry for the situation that they find themselves in. They they try very hard to
Mm-hmm.
make a difference, and it's not possible in that system.
Yeah, as you say, tragic.
So, yeah, I don't mean to poo-poo the public education system as if it's full of incompetent people or anything. They're quite competent. It's the design flaw of that system that I have a problem with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, sorry, I don't mean to derail either. We're getting very theoretical, and Michael, I feel like you maybe had a different plan of direction that you wanted to go in for this first hour anyway.
Got to develop ideas. But so that's education. So what is teaching? Do you want to add, do you think you've addressed that enough, or how does the nature of education play into teaching?
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit before, that a good teacher is somebody who's going to want to encourage students to connect the dots and come up with relevant application for what they're doing. And, going to Kira's point about the setup of the public school system, I think it is set up to mass educate. And so if you need a class of 40 people or however many they put in a classroom these days to move ahead together, then you teach toward the bottom of that group. So you aim to the middle or below, and you can't really expect that the whole group is going to progress together unless you do that. So that also loses some of the individuality of, trying to get students to engage individually and move together, but also come up with their own thoughts about things. So I think that kind of leads into, the value of homeschooling. And that's something that we're faced with now with COVID. But I'm going to talk about homeschooling as I did it, which is, taking a step back and being able to individualize a curriculum so that you do promote independent thinking and, what we talked about in the education process. How do you pull all this together and apply it to something else? You can do that with a small group or, in a homeschool environment. And I think that's one of the things maybe that people today are discovering, that when their kids are home and they're trying to do the system online that the public school is giving them, because of COVID, it seems like a lot of busy work. And, it is not tailored to the individual. So I think maybe that's becoming a little bit more known now that kids are home and their parents are having to, coach them on how to move forward with what the prescribed curriculum from that group, that classroom, and bring that home. Maybe they're starting to see, well, there's a lot of busy work here, and maybe they're getting a little bit more of the individual coaching if the parent is able to spend that time with the kids. So, it could be some good things coming out of that as far as awareness from a parent's perspective.
Mm-hmm. And Kira, do you got anything else to say about teaching, or good teaching versus bad teaching?
No, just that I think there was a quote in a book that I was reading recently that talked about a good teacher teaches learning, not information. So didn't teach information, they teach learning. And the difference is really important, but I think often overlooked. So I think that's pretty much what we had said earlier.
Mm-hmm. And then you had mentioned about something about good teachers when you were talking about education. Did you have some examples that might be widely known in the culture, people who are good teachers in history or whatever?
Oh, in history, I mean, I would say that the Socratic method is an excellent way to teach, because it's a discussion-based way of approaching information. Well, in a way of approaching thought. And I think, let's see, there were quite a few good teachers. So let's see. I think his name was Diderot. Maybe it's Diderot. Yes, Denis Diderot. Yeah. The French philosopher who helped work on the first encyclopedias, the original encyclopedias in the 18th century. He was also one of these sort of polymath people. I think that's an important facet of educators. I would have guessed that Leonardo da Vinci would have been a very interesting human to sit down and learn from, because of his enthusiasm. I think that's a common characteristic of good teachers throughout history, is that they are enthusiastic about their subjects. Mm-hmm. And that they probably don't limit themselves to one subject. They're excited about everything, you know.
Yeah, like
so here I was
very robust. Sorry, Mom?
I was kind of expecting you to say, yeah, my mom was a great teacher. But you didn't say that.
Course.
She implied it because she
my
said
mother is an excellent teacher.
She said a great teacher, the best teachers, the best, teach students how to be independent, and it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then notice how she was very, very well educated by you, Gail, because she didn't state that for people. She left that for people to discover independently on their own, right?
Yeah.
Right. So there's that depth of thought. It's very Shakespearean. All these like triple and quadruple and dectuple entendres, or like double meanings and triple meanings and 10 meanings and all this stuff. That's Kira. You know, it's proof right there. Proof in the pudding.
Yeah, I think it's implied, Mom, that you and I wouldn't be both talking about this. I wouldn't be interested in education if I didn't value education, and I wouldn't have valued it except that you did a good job.
Oh, well, now I'm smiling.
Yeah, okay. Well, you want to fish for compliments? I can go all day. So.
Well, I want to give you a compliment by telling you guys a story, and Kira obviously knows this story, but when I was homeschooling Kira, she was really, really good at math and still is very good at math. I am okay with math concepts, but she is really advanced in math. And there was one time where I was trying to talk about algebra to her, and I can't remember what it was. It was a more complex equation we were trying to work out. And I, presented my way of thinking about it. And then she said, well, I think of it differently. And I said, oh, really? And she got up and showed me how she thought about the problem that we were trying to solve. And I just learned from her. And I was blown away by this. I don't know, you were like 12 or 11 or something, by her grasp of this particular way that her brain worked as far as mathematical equations and solving them. So, that was something that she taught me, and she's taught me a lot of things. So it's not just me teaching her and my other daughter, but really what the student can teach the teacher. That is another big value of homeschooling and that relationship. So anyway, Kara, do you remember that when you taught me about algebra?
Really distantly, yeah. Something I sort of I remember that at some point you stopped trying to teach me math, and you let me just read the textbooks and do the stuff.
And go to math club.
And then
you went to a math club.
I started going and hanging out with these incredible genius people who were, I mean, you think that I'm good at math. These people were like on a whole nother plane of mathematical genius. And Michael, these were the kids that competed with each other and were really upset that, one of them got a 1590 on the SATs back when the SATs, the top grade was like a perfect score was a 1600. One person got a 1590, another person got a 1580, another person got a 1570, and then there was the kid who got 1470 who was like, really upset about that. I was way in the back. I got a 1210, so they were all like 13, 14 years old. They were not high school grads. They were young kids.
Nice.
So part of that
learned
math
how to be
club,
problem solvers.
Yeah, and part of that math club, the format of it, they used a lot of games in math club.
Mm-hmm.
And they, had this one gal who was a homeschool mom, and she led them through this. I think it was once a week that you went to that. And then they did competitions. You went away to do a competition once, I remember.
A few times, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of times. So they took the Austin area homeschooler group of math whizzes to compete, and I don't really remember the details of that, but that's another thing is realizing where you can't really help your child grow in a certain area, and that other people or other resources can really help them better than you can as a homeschooling parent. Mm-hmm. So we did a lot of that. We did Shakespeare drama when both my kids were quite a bit younger. Maybe, I don't know, were you like 10 when you started Shakespeare plays?
I don't know.
So there was a lot of, public speaking with that. And that actually builds confidence. You talk about, obviously the plays and the literature and the themes behind the characters and how it all comes together. That was a great activity that I don't know that is something that kids that go to public school actually can do. Maybe they do have drama clubs, but this was much more intimate, I think, with the groups that did that.
Yeah, Mom, I want to just jump in because I know that there are theater classes in public education, in public schools. But the plays that they typically do are modern, like Broadway adaptations or Americana type plays, not Shakespeare. They wouldn't touch Shakespeare with a 10-foot pole just because they consider it to be too complex and too difficult and too hard to understand, and just it's too much. That's like they wouldn't try and do that. I don't think. I haven't ever heard of a public school class attempting Shakespeare or like we did Cyrano de Bergerac. We did what else did we do? We did Antigone. I didn't, but Emily did. Like we tackled Sophocles, and we as students were as participants in that group we were responsible for going home and reading the script and understanding it, and then going into the theater classroom and discussing it and figuring out the parts that we didn't understand and talking about the history of where they were and what the setting was and why it made sense, to talk about it that way. And there was a whole lot of depth that we were able to cover through Shakespeare, not just because of Shakespeare. Not just, our goal was not just to put on a play, but to understand the characters that we were playing. And in order to do that, we had to understand a whole lot more. So it was a good learning experience that way. And same with the math club and the playing of the games. Math is very much a methodology. It's very much like, if you're going to be good at math, you become good at problem solving and pattern recognition and all of the things that make you good at games. So we played a lot of games, but they were games that helped us think in the way that we needed to be able to think to do math well and to solve math problems quickly, because it was all pattern recognition. If you've ever played, tic-tac-toe, you know that it matters who goes first, and if you played things like, what's the one where you drop, it's Connect Four, it's the same thing, it's tic-tac-toe with a couple added squares. And you start doing this pattern recognition thing. So you plan ahead and you see patterns and you can predict what's going to happen next and then solve the puzzle quicker. So it's another methodology thing. I don't think that I would have been as good in science classes like biology and chemistry had I not also learned how to do the math puzzles. That was another way to branch out. But I do want to just highlight something that my mom said. It's funny to call you my mom as an adult mom. I should call you Gail. When I'm talking to other people, I think of something that Gail said. So something she said was that in homeschooling, if the parent encounters a point when they're not, where they recognize that their child is gifted in some area or really interested in something that they themselves may not know very much about, you can go and find someone else who is really good at that subject or really interested in it and able to help your child develop in that direction. Whereas if I had been in a public school and I had been good at math, I would have just become bored very quickly. Because there would have been no way for me to go faster, and there would have been no way for me to dive further into math. I would have just had to plod along and be really, really bored.
Yeah, a lot of the teachers are limited. There's some are good, as you say, but you don't know what you're going to get. I know in my years of experience on this earth, people in geometry, teachers in geometry want to do some so-called logic stuff, but some of them don't even understand the stuff they're required to teach about logic in there. Never mind the broader percentage that's a lot greater than I would like that doesn't even really understand what logic is. I mean, I used to not either. I'm not a genius. I learned a lot from other people. I would not know otherwise. But given what I've learned, I know a lot of people do not know what logic is. And there's these people in geometry not able to teach that. Or one kid I tutored privately years ago, we were doing work problems and rate problems where like someone paints a fraction of a room and someone else paints the other fraction of the room to make the whole job. And they work at different rates. Maybe one person takes 6 hours to do the room and another person 9 hours, because not everyone does the same rate. And I was showing him how to do this stuff and explaining why. And his teacher was telling him something else. And she was wrong. And she would not admit it. She was telling this kid, this is how you do it, when it was, the answers were wrong and it was contradicting what I was saying. And it was right there in black and white for the kid to understand. And he was so confused. Like, I don't know what to believe.
Right.
Because the teacher would not admit that she was wrong.
I've had that experience too. Yeah. I've had that experience too, because the whole idea, well, we can talk about that after Mom is done, but that's a good point to come back to, this issue of authority in a classroom and trying to maintain it.
So I make a point now. It's like, I'm the first one to say if I'm wrong. It's like, I don't wait.
Mm-hmm.
And I make a big deal out of it because I think that people need to know, like, you're wrong sometimes. This is how to deal with it, um,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like faking it or kind of the stuff that I saw when I was in school.
Yeah, I guess there's a tie in there with homeschooling, and what I think probably keeps a lot of people from doing homeschooling is that they think that they're not educated enough as a teacher to become a good teacher and to know how to educate their kids. And it's like, okay, well, everybody has a weak spot, right? I mean, academically, we have a worst subject and a best subject. So everybody has that. That does not mean that you are unable to teach your child in every other area, and that you can't supplement their education with, outside sources to help beef up the areas where you yourself might be weak.
Right.
It's just a matter of, do you value your child's education enough to go through it with them? And like Gail mentioned, you end up, as a parent, you would learn from your child. You would learn with your child. You would be doing it together. It's a shared activity, not just I think part of the issue is that they perceive from their own experience, parents perceive from their own experience in probably a public school system, the separation between a teacher and a student, and they think that those are two separate roles that can't ever be joined. When I think it's very, very clear to me that those two roles are completely intertwined. Some days the student is the teacher and the teacher is the student. Some, and we're sharing the process of learning, not just having one person do all of the teaching and one person do all of the nodding and appreciating and listening. It's an interactive thing between the parent and between the teacher and the student.
I just want to add something to that, Kara. When you homeschool as a parent, and I'm not talking about what they have now with COVID, with the curriculum being delivered and the student having to go through and complete projects or things and then submit them online. That's not what I would characterize as homeschooling, truly, in the sense that we're talking about. But when you do share that role as a parent and a teacher, you also have to discipline in that you need a structure and an expectation of, we're gonna do these types of activities in the morning, and then in the afternoon, maybe you go to a club kind of a thing, like we mentioned, drama club or chess club even. Kira didn't talk about that, but she was in a chess club.
Cool.
And, math club, or maybe it's a shared co-op kind of thing that you do maybe once a week. So you do need to have a structure of, okay, during this period, we're going to look at our math and where we are in math. We're going to read some things together. Maybe we'll read aloud. Maybe we'll look at history and also read aloud history for young kids. It's really good to have them hear their voice as they're reading something. And, the more you can infuse the other aspects, like in history, for example, you talk about, well, these events happened and maybe one led into another. Well, what was the art at the time? What was the science at the time? And how does that all paint a picture of why the people thought and did the things they did during that particular time? And I think that's what Kara was talking about, the great integrator of history. Mm-hmm. The more that you can do that, and kids won't necessarily go and find those things on their own. You, as their parent and teacher, need to guide them through, that type of study. Mm-hmm. Even things that they don't like. For example, with Kira, I'm going to tell a story about you again, Kira. She really didn't like to write. I had my kids do essays and write daily about, a topic that we were studying, those kind of things. And she really felt intimidated, I think, by the whiteness of the paper. And there was one time she just said, I really hate doing this. She was upset. And I said, well, write about why you hate writing. And she looked at me with this fire in her eyes. She was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And she wrote and wrote and wrote this wonderful diatribe almost about why she hated writing, right? Oh. And she expressed herself well and, got all of her words on paper. And as was my practice, when they were finished writing, they'd let me see it and we would edit it together, clarify what was there. And she, because she's such a smart young lady, she realized what had happened there. She realized,
Mom, you
got
me
to write something. Yeah. And now we're fine-tuning it. Yeah. So, I remember that because I think that was a big breakthrough for you, Kara. You want to talk a little bit about how that mattered to you and what you do now and so forth?
Yeah, it was absolutely a breakthrough for me
Cool.
because I realized I was so angry. I had so much to say about why I hated writing and why it was so stupid to have to write all these, essays all the time. I had all of these opinions. And once the floodgate opened, suddenly all of my opinions were just out there on the paper because I had written as if I had spoken. Like it was one of these, right. You wouldn't let me tell you why I didn't want to write. You had me write down why I didn't want to write, which meant that I just wrote down what I would have said. And then I had never had a problem writing anymore because I just wrote down what I would say about something.
Funny.
Because people always think that you have to somehow do something special when you write. You need to it's a separate thing rather than communication. It is just communication and you're writing it down. It's just like, what would you say out loud and then just write that down. And then you move sentences around and, you wordsmith things and whatever. That's all in the editing process. The first draft should just be, tell me what you think about this subject, and just write it down as that. And then you can organize it later.
Cool. Nice.
I don't know. It made a big impact on me. And I remember that I remember that moment extremely fondly.
How old were you?
Never had a problem ever again. Oh, I was like, I don't know, 9, 10, cool. Something like that.
Nice.
Maybe I was younger than that. Mom, what do you think?
I think you might have been a little younger than that, but yeah, it was something that needed to happen. Now, I don't know if kids actually write essays these days. I know if you're
not that young,
a group of kids, yeah. We did a lot of aloud reading and a lot of writing down things. We played a lot of different games, and we tried to apply what we were learning to, things that were out there in the world. So I'm glad I did it. I think it was a lot of work. On one hand, because it's a responsibility to help to educate your child. And at the time that I did it, there was a movement of unschooling, which basically was the philosophy of John Holt. And he thought that, any child should be left to their own devices, to learn what they need to know, when they need to know it, that they'll find a way to get the information, and that parents shouldn't impede the natural development of their child's learning by trying to structure anything. Well, I was opposed to that methodology and actually spoke at a homeschooling conference about why that wasn't right. And the room was packed. I mean, I had a website way back when. There weren't a lot of websites. And I mostly was talking about philosophy of education and how to go about playing that dual role as a parent and also a teacher. And it was also during the time of this John Holt's philosophy that was more natural type learning. And, I thought, okay, these people are angry. They're not going to like what I have to say, but, they all listened and nobody threw tomatoes at me or anything. I had them do some of the things that, how we approached homeschooling in our environment. And I'm not saying I had all the answers, but I do think that if you're going to take on the responsibility of homeschooling, that you should have a plan and some structure around it, and to reach out when you feel you can't teach well in a certain area, and have other like mentors or tutors come in and help with those ancillary things.
Yeah, like unschooling would be kind of like unhealthing or unmedicining. Like, hey, let your kids do whatever they want. And if they don't want to exercise, don't make them. It's like, that's no. You control their diet and stuff like that. Yeah.
To what I saw of it was like just the opposite of discipline. They didn't learn any self-discipline because they didn't have any requirements academically. So whereas when you have a structure and you have a schedule that you stick to and you have expectations that someone else has given you that you need to meet, you end up developing some sense of self-discipline when faced with difficult situations. And you learn how to not give up on yourself when you're facing a difficult situation. If you don't have that structure and you don't have anyone else setting goals for you that you have to meet, then you you don't develop that kind of self-discipline and reliance on self-reliance on and belief in your own ability to figure out how to solve a problem on a deadline. Lacking deadlines means that you don't know how to deal with deadlines, and the world is full of deadlines. So it doesn't prepare you for that. It's not necessarily a bad thing to say you can study whatever you want to study, or to say I'm going to be involved with you and you can make some of the choices about what you want to study and when. Like I wanted to go to math club, I wanted to go to chess club. I did not want to play sports. That was not an essential thing. So we came to an agreement on that. But there were things that I didn't want to do that I did have to do, like writing.
Well, you also participated in a swim team that you.
Yeah, we did some physical activities. It's just I didn't like group sports, and there was no requirement as opposed to in a public education system. Gym class, you're required to participate in group sport stuff, and I never felt confident enough to do that. I really get nervous about getting hurt in sports, and so solo sports are really good for me, and group sports are really scary. Other people might throw the ball at my face, and it might hit me in the nose, and it would hurt. And I don't know. But yeah, when it came to unschooling, I saw and have seen only a couple examples of extremely academically successful people in the one or two, in the subjects that they loved. And that was one of the friends of mine in the math club was brilliant in math and science and anything to do with computers. That was his thing, and he loved it. And I think he did that to the exclusion of almost everything else. because he loved it so much, and that was fine, and that ended up working out just great for him in the long run because he was extremely successful at it and went to MIT and double majored in computer science and I think robotics design. So he was brilliant, and his parents were very unschooly, let their kid do whatever they wanted, and it just happened that he wanted to go into math and science stuff.
And someone like that, they're probably going to be that way no matter what they're in. Public school, private school, homeschooling, unschool. It's just
there was a definite aptitude there. Yeah. So, but there were other students, kids that I knew whose parents were into unschooling who just kind of drifted most of their academics time. I think they've probably settled out now because now they're adults and they probably have a better idea of what they want, but for a long period of time they just kind of drifted and didn't get very far in anything that I could tell. I mean, I probably shouldn't try and compare individuals like that, but
right. But in the formative years, when you're growing up and you're learning about the world, it does help to have a structure and a guide to help you connect the dots, to build your thinking skills and your independence, and to get a sense that the world actually makes sense and you can make sense of it. So it's an efficacious kind of thing that, you risk if you just say, well, I'm going to unschool, which means I'm going to let my kid do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, so when you got that structure, there's, done rationally, there's the idea that wisdom matters, and it's going to make your life better. And then there's a thing about implicitly learning it on your own. Otherwise, it's like, wisdom doesn't matter. Just do whatever the hell you want. Like, there's no structure to knowledge and no rules and no logic. Just go out and learn stuff. Not, but
right, it's just a matter of what you feel like you are trying to prepare your kids for. So if you're a homeschooler, you might be trying to prepare them. I mean, we can get into a really meta conversation and say that whatever it is that you value, that you think that you're trying to prepare your kids for is a reflection of your personal philosophy of what you think is important about life. If it's just experiences, floating experiences, or if there's some larger connectivity of logic and reason and purpose, and that those are things that you want to prepare your kid for. So it depends on the parent, and that is the right of every parent, is to educate their kid or to raise their kid in accordance to their own values. That's the right of a parent. But I'm personally very grateful that I was prepared for a world that has a lot of reason and logic and causality and structure, because I think that has helped me.
Like in rock climbing, there are consequences and there's structure, certain things you can do and cannot do, kind of same thing. In the real world, in the social world, things you can do and not do. So it's good to learn that. And as someone said, like, yes, we are free to choose, and some people are free to evade. But parents should be free to do, within limits, as long as it's not abusive, educate their kids how they want. But while we're free to do that, we're not free to escape the consequences of our actions. So good education, bad education is a fact. Good teaching, bad teaching is a fact. But we can't impose it. But so what about
what question? Go ahead.
So we've talked about modern education and characterizing mainstream education. Did you want to say anything about that? Did we cover that enough for you? Any other thoughts you had?
I think we covered that pretty well.
And what about
Yeah, I think so.
why choose homeschooling? Anything else on that?
Why did you choose homeschooling?
Well, for me, back then, I wanted to raise my children myself and not have I could have pursued a career, and I did later. But when we decided to have children, we decided, well, okay, we don't want them to go off to like a daycare to have somebody else have that responsibility to take care of them. I wanted to take care of my kids, and when it came time to decide about, going to school, I thought, well, I'm not really convinced that the school experience would be something that would be robust enough. And I approached homeschooling on a yearly basis. So I would make a decision for a year and say, well, okay, we're going to try this and see how it works and reevaluate at the end of the year. It had to both work for myself and for my kids. That was, I think, a good way to kind of keep it in check and not say, well, okay, I've decided to homeschool, which means I need to homeschool for years and years and years and years, and deny myself what I might have wanted to do career-wise. So I think that would have been a mistake if we just decided, okay, we're going to do this and we're just going to keep doing it forever, no matter what. At the end of a year, we'd look at it and say, well, okay, this was a hard year or a good year. We made a lot of progress this year. And I remember having family meetings, about, well, what do you think we could do differently to make it better? Are you still wanting to, be at home? My kids always had the option to go to school if they wanted to. And Kira actually did go to middle school, which is a terrible time to try school. But she did go to middle school and had that experience and then came back to homeschooling after that. So
to clarify, it was 8th grade. It was just 8th grade, which is when students are 13 to 14 years old.
Was it the whole year or a month or what?
It was the whole. I did the whole year, and it was a very eye-opening experience. I did not learn anything academically, but I learned a lot about
stuff
how other people had
stuff you'd rather know when you're after 20.
Yeah, I think it would have been better to learn it later.
Yeah.
It didn't make me, better social, I didn't I don't know. There were pros and cons of being there. But there are pros and cons of every situation. I don't think that it was the right time. It was a good decision on my part because it was definitely more damaging than it was helpful, I think.
It's too bad.
But
because kids are at 13 and 14. That's right when puberty is happening, and it's just it's a very traumatic time for any kid at 13, 14 years old. So to add on to that it was my first experience in a large school. I mean, it was a big school too. It was a couple thousand students. So to go from a small community of homeschoolers where I knew everybody by name, had been there for my whole life, really, to go into a public school of thousands of students who were all my age, but I didn't know any of them, and they were all angry at me for no reason that I could figure out. I was good at school. That was the reason that they were angry at me. I was new and I was weird and I was good. at school.
Yeah, sad.
Very strange. Yeah, I didn't know why. That was why it was damaging, because I didn't understand why they hated me so much without me doing anything to them. I just couldn't understand that.
Yeah.
So crazy stuff. Sorry, didn't mean to sidetrack. Mom, go ahead.
No, I think that that's valuable because, it
Why choose homeschooling?
It talks, it talks to resilience, and being able to think through things and to realize your own worth, even if people are around you and resentful, of who is this person who comes in from nowhere who I don't really know, and she's odd. Maybe she asks questions in class, or, just thinks about things differently than the way the system teaches, or doesn't teach, but kind of implies students should be. I think that was a hard experience, but I think it was a overall positive, good experience to have, because she went into college early. She was a dual enrolled student.
Cool.
I think I had to have a lab science, and I didn't have a lab at home, and she was more advanced in math. So at 16, she joined the community college as a dual enrolled student.
Actually, I was 15, Mom.
I thought you were 16. Well, your birthday is in January, so.
You moved to Utah right before I turned 16, so it had to be when I was 15.
Yeah, well, maybe. But anyway, dual enrollment is, I don't know if they still have that, but it's a high school, community college kind of enrollment, where you can maybe those are called AP classes now. Not really.
No, there's some dual credit down here.
Oh, okay.
I think some kids have done something like that.
So that's what she did. Yeah. And that wasn't, but I don't think that went over really well with you, Kira, at the time, but I think it was just kind of, you felt like that people were much older than you, and it was harder to associate with them, but I don't want to.
No, the way that I remember it, I remember that compared to the experience in middle school, it was a dream, because they left me alone. I mean, nobody made fun of me in college classrooms. I got A's. So, here's this 15-year-old kid surrounded by 18, 19-year-old kids, and I'm getting A's.
In college, it'd be more like, hey, can we study with you? How do you do that?
Yeah.
Can we see your notes?
I had older kids come to me and ask me how I always got good grades on the quizzes in these classes, and it was very funny, because I would look at them and just be like, well, I did the reading and I did the homework. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. Like, it's pretty straightforward. You just have to do the work.
So you learned some study skills that they didn't pick up in like their public or private school or wherever they went.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I'm a good note taker, and
processing.
If I don't understand something, then I know how to reread and find out what it is that I've missed, or if I can't write an essay about it, I know that I don't understand it all the way.
See, she likes to write.
That's a good thing about the homeschooling, that one-on-one thing you were talking about that's important in education, to kind of tie back into that, the feedback you got. In some schools, you might do an essay and the teacher grades it, and then they never redo it. And that's missing a valuable lesson for feedback. It's like, that's, I think, one reason why they're not as successful as you were. You got that feedback, and if to do essays better in schools in general, they should have to do a rewrite like 3 to 5 times. That's how you really learn to write and think. What?
Yeah, and if I could just piggyback on that, Michael, if you, as a student, a young student, or even an older student, if you live with wrong thinking, like a mistake in your thought process. If you think that you can't understand it because you aren't able to put one and one together, and line up the dots so that it makes sense to you. The longer you live with that, what feels like an inability to make sense of something, the more you tend to think, well, I can't understand that, so I'm not even going to go there because I risk failure. Mm-hmm. So if you're homeschooling or doing this, small group learning, and you do get that feedback right away, and you work through the right way to think about it so that you can understand it and make sense of it, you don't ever necessarily feel like, oh, this is beyond me. I cannot learn this, and therefore I'm going to avoid it because I don't want to fail. If you get that feedback right away, and that is a great thing to boost your confidence in yourself and your own ability to reason through problems and to come to a solution. I think that's what can also be missing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Anything else, Gail?
And I think back to the,
sorry. Go ahead.
Back to the general question of why choose homeschooling. Not only are there more opportunities to build the character of your child in homeschooling, and help them develop as a person, raising them. You can have a more hands-on approach to raising your child if you have them at home. You also have more opportunities to encourage them to learn all the time. Like, the idea of a homeschool is that the home is the classroom, right? Mm-hmm. Is the school. And that means that you're never not learning in a homeschool environment. Mm-hmm. Everything is an opportunity to learn. And that's a really valuable thing to take forward into the world, because I don't ever stop learning. The whole world is a class for me, is a school. So I've never felt like learning is a chore or a thing that I only do on certain days, or I want to be learning for my entire life. So I think homeschooling really does have the potential to encourage young people to love learning, and that changes a person's life for the entirety of their life. If a person loves learning, they move towards challenges, and they believe that anything, including failure, and especially failure, is a learning experience, not a bad thing. You just can't beat them. If you love learning, there's no way that you can lose.
So it could be like, you've done some math, and then it's dinner time, and you say, Gail says, okay, Kira, remember how we talked about fractions? Okay, well, this recipe is too big. We need to cut it down by half. So how do we do that? And But then when you cook, you can't really cut everything down by halves because of the way things taste. You might have to modify something a little bit. Or you could say, doing physics, okay, Gail could say, Kira, remember how I pushed you on the swing when you were young? Okay, well, that was a pendulum. That's what a pendulum is. Things like that. Yeah, it's like all over the place.
All of these connections. And it's not just these let's tie it back into the lesson that we had or that we're trying to work on right now. It's more like we would go on walks, or we would play outside. A big portion of our day was spent outside, and we would come back and collect the weird bugs that we found, or the bones or the leaves or whatever, and somehow we'd be curious about them, right?
Yeah,
we'd find a we'd find some insect that we couldn't identify, and I'd say, Mom, what is this? She'd say, I don't know. Go consult the encyclopedia. Go look it up in the books that we have over there in the shelf. Find the answer. Go find it. And then, maybe I'll be really interested in it. Maybe I'll write an essay about this bug that I found in the backyard, because everything, the whole world was an opportunity for learning.
Yeah.
Not just situationally, but like just anything that we happen to come across. I watched a movie and I thought that, some aspect of it was really interesting. So I went and did some more research and wrote some paper about that subject.
Cool.
Just there's so many opportunities to turn living into an educational experience, and it's fun. It becomes fun.
Yeah, it's your own curiosity. You're free. It's not like learning to hate literature or everything you write is because you're assigned. It's like you're assigning yourself stuff, and it becomes part of the curriculum. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then you feel a great sense of pride in the final result, because from start to finish, that was something that you were interested in, and you contributed something meaningful into the wealth of knowledge because you were interested in something, not just because somebody assigned it to you and you had to figure out how to make it interesting. You actually some of those. Sure. I mean, my favorite assignments were the ones that started with me.
Cool.
Something I was interested in. It's that personalization of learning, and then that builds a supreme level, like a feeling of confidence and ability to pursue what I thought was important. That has implications in the strength of character that Gail was talking about.
Yeah. So just to clarify, it almost sounds like, you're saying that the things that you thought of yourself to pursue were the most valuable, and that could be misconstrued as the unschooling philosophy. And I want to emphasize that in order to have a framework to really know how to make those connections, you do need to have basic skills and basic knowledge base to branch off from and do what Kira's been describing as the things that, spurred her curiosity that she remembers the most. For example, so a lot of kids today don't know anything at all about geography. They don't know where places are in the world, or, the capitals of the different states and so forth. And I think, things like that, maybe a kid would be interested in pursuing, but I think that's an important part of our world, to understand where things are in the world, so that you understand things on the news, you understand what's happening, in the next town over. When you visit your grandparents, you kind of understand where you are, and those things, I don't know that those are really covered in school, public school curriculum these days, but I think they should be, because then you can talk about, the history of a place and know where the place is and what the landforms and so forth are around that place, which give rise to the type of community that develops around those places and so forth. So, even though there's structure in the way that I would recommend homeschooling, that doesn't mean that you don't eliminate choices. It's not all one directional, and it's not unschooling. So just wanted to clarify that before I jump off this call, because I've got to go.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And we might wrap up. I'm like really hungry and my brain is not functioning as well.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Do you have any last questions that you'd like to ask then, Michael?
No, we covered these things, first 4 questions today, and in the future we can go over the others, but there's still some overlap, of course. But education, teaching, modern education, homeschooling, why choose it. One thing I'd throw in, um, I think, yeah, like Gail, what you were doing is more, if people would have a broader perspective, more historical perspective, knew more about biology and ecology and human nature, we'd see that that's more in line with what we've done for millennia. I think it's more appropriate to human nature, the way we function, social groups, the way schools are nowadays. It's a fad. It's not found at all in our evolutionary history, except now. It does not work. These big groups of kids, having them all sectioned off by age and stuff, and it, it needs to change. That's one thing. So the homeschooling is more in tune with our evolution. We have free will, but we have a nature. We don't have the free will to do whatever we want. We have the free will to follow our nature or not. And there are certain requirements about that. That's like hard and fast. And the more we're in tune with our nature, the more happier and healthier we're going to be.
Yeah, I think it really matters what the goal is. So if the goal in education is to create self-efficacious individuals, then I don't think the public school system is designed for that. It's designed to do that well anyway. But if that's not their intent, if that's not the goal of public school education, then maybe there's another goal and maybe it's accomplishing it.
And I should too, say that just because I said that about evolution and homeschooling, it's not like I'm saying that if everyone should homeschool or if they don't, they're bad. There's choices. People can have a career and have someone else educate their kid, and that's fine. But right. I'm just making this general statement that's true and relevant, and we still can have some choices and do things differently, as long as we consider the big picture. Go to a private school, homeschool differently. There's things we can do. We're human. We have the ability to think and make things happen, but have it, whatever it is, should be in a human appropriate way, kind of following evolution. That's more what I'm saying, if that helps people. But yeah, I wasn't.
Very good.
Yeah, I wasn't homeschooled. I wish, but I wasn't. But
I don't think that I would. I don't think that I necessarily would choose to homeschool, because I think that there are other options that might work better for me in today's situation. But I think the important thing is that as a parent, each parent has to decide what they think is important for their kid, what kind of education is important for their child. Yeah. And that's a decision that is just de facto not being made, because there's the norm, and the norm is to put your kid in a public school and let someone else figure out what's important for them to learn. Yeah. And that lack of decision is what bothers me. Yeah. It's like parents have options. They don't even recognize that they have options. They don't explore their options, because we have created the system that going into public school is the expected, socially acceptable thing to do. They don't think about what that means and whether that actually is what they want to do for their kids. So, I mean, there are other options. That's what I hope people can take away from this kind of discussion, is just that there's a lot of options out there, and you should look at what you think is important for your child to get from an education system, and then pick an education system that works for you. And if it doesn't exist yet, petition someone to create it, because there's a lot of people out there who are trying to figure out how to teach differently and what ways would work better. So there's a lot of choices.
Any other last words, Gail or Kira?
No, I think Kira summed it up really well. So cool. I just want to say that I'm proud of you, Kira, and the way that you think.
Cool.
Thanks, Mom. I credit you.
I credit you.
Not completely. Not completely, because part of this is all me,
But absolutely.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you, Michael,
Okay,
for having us on this call. And
Awesome. Yeah,
I
thank you.
hope we can do a follow-up one sometime.
Amen. True. Me too.
Maybe after my final.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. So,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, thank you. Y'all have a good Thanksgiving and a Thanksgiving
Thanks,
week and
Michael.
all that stuff, and I'll see y'all around.
Yeah, you
You
too.
too.
Enjoy your
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.